Welcome to Bits and Pieces. This is Malia. Today we're going to tackle a 1954 recipe on pickled watermelon rind. I have this cookbook of Louisiana Cookery, and it called for 1 pound of rind and 5 cups of sugar. That seemed a bit off balance to me. So I decided to go ahead and finish cutting up the half of watermelon and add that to the mix. It only increased it, probably by about 30 or 40%. The recipe first calls for cutting off the pink part of the watermelon and then using a peeler to remove the green part. You wash it in cool water and then soak it in ice water for a half hour. And then, of course, the leftover green part gets put into the compost. Eat the red part, as is. The next part of this was to make a quart bottle of lime water by mixing a tablespoon of slaked lime with cold water. I actually had to Google this. And I've got the calcium hydroxide, which is what they mean, off Amazon. It's a food grade, and just added that into the cold water. The next part of this was to add the watermelon and soak for several hours. So since I used more than the 1 pound of watermelon, I did end up having to mix up some more of this limed water to actually fully cover all the watermelon rind. I let this sit in the refrigerator overnight and decided to finish the next day. So I just poured this out and strained it. And the next part of the instructions, of course, is to rinse with cold water. So this is where the recipe starts to get a little sketchy. You're supposed to simmer in ginger and water for an hour. It gives no amount of water, no amount of ginger. Or what type of ginger. So I used some ginger that I had dried and just sprinkled some into the water and put enough water to just almost cover the watermelon, with the assumption that as it cooked, it would be fully submersed, which was, in fact, the case. At this point, it says to add 5 cups of sugar. It can be white or brown. I chose 1 cup of brown sugar and 4 cups of white sugar. It also called for the juice of 3 limes. I'm more comfortable using bottled lime juice for canning purposes unless I'm cooking it with the rind. So I used bottled lime juice and stirred it and simmered for another hour or until tender. It was still firm because of the limed water that was soaked in previously, but once it reached translucent and I could pierce it with a fork, which probably was more like an hour and a half, I then packed it into jars and poured over with the syrup to cover. I used this little, I think it's a thing for crab peeling, to kind of help poke all of it down to pack it as tightly as I could. I'm seeing now why they wanted 5 cups of sugar per pound of watermelon, so that you have enough syrup to cover the watermelon when you start to can it. At this point, once you've got them packed appropriately and filled with syrup. You will water bath process these. I'm going to confess I had a little bit of a mishap. I do believe on one of the jars I forgot to go over the rim with a cloth with some vinegar on it, and the lid popped off one jar. But they're like a candy. I'm definitely going to enjoy these, even the one that lost its lid. It's just going to be put in the refrigerator. I hope you're enjoying exploring these vintage cookbooks with me. Please like and subscribe.